Hi guys, how are you? I wanted to post this video for you guys to talk a little bit about the scientific method which we are studying this week. So far you guys have done a really nice job on the assignments that you've done, but I was hoping to clarify a couple of things for you. So the scientific method is all about how we as scientists explore the world around us. And really the whole point of this is not so much that all of you have to go out and become scientists, even though that would be great, but how do we become responsible citizens of this planet with all of the changes we have going on? How do we process all of the data that comes at us so quickly from so many different sources? So to start, let's just go over the basics of the scientific method. Really, everything's about noticing or observing something. And many of you really picked up on this very well when we did the Pangea exercise. So one of the things that Wegener noticed right away was this puzzle fit of the continents. And that's really what led him to go on to do further research into, well, he really thought his hypothesis was that the continents were all once connected. And then he went out and found additional evidence, like the Mesosaurus, coal deposits. He even, I'm not sure if this in particular was mentioned in the videos, but he even found tropical plant species on an Arctic island called Spitsbergen. So we had all this great evidence. And we do that every day. You probably do the scientific method without even realizing it. For instance, one example in my life that I used was a couple of years ago. I was actually curious to know whether or not Miracle-Gro actually worked in making plants grow taller. So I took a few plants. One thing I did, and again, so my question is, does Miracle-Gro work? My hypothesis was that it probably did. I mean, they've been selling it for a long time. People have been paying money for it, so it probably works. But I wanted to test it out. So I took 6 plants, actually, tomato plants, and I had some controls in my experiment. I made sure that all the plants came from the same nursery. They were all the same type of plant. They all had the same type of soil that they came in. And then what I did was I took 3 of those plants and I added the right amount of Miracle-Gro. The other 3 plants were my control group, or my comparison group, and those are the ones that I just left the regular dirt in. So let's talk about some variables. My independent variable, that's my Miracle-Gro. That's what I'm changing on purpose. And in any good experiment, you only want to have one independent variable. That way, if there is a change in my plants, I know that it was the Miracle-Gro that did it and nothing else. So my controls, the things I keep the same, help me make sure that my results are going to be a little bit more valid. So what I found was, after the course of, I think I measured this over the course of a month, I was measuring plant height. To me, that was the easiest thing and the quickest change that I could see. So plant height, the thing that I measure in experiment, was my dependent variable. And I actually found over the course of the month, while keeping all other things the same, that, sorry, I'm petting my dog Bandit here, came to say hi. I actually found that the plants with the Miracle-Gro did indeed grow taller by about 2 centimeters, which I thought was fairly significant. So that's a little experiment, something that you can do in your everyday life. You've probably done something like this that you didn't even realize you were using the scientific method for. Now, let's get back to talking about reliable, verifiable, valid data. These are things that my little experiment doesn't really show. One, I only tested 6 plants. In order for this to be an accepted experiment, we would want to test thousands. Also, it was just me. One of the most important things that I hope you learned from using that scoring rubric when you took a look at those different websites was that in order for something to be valid or accepted, it needs to be repeatable. So I didn't have anybody else repeat my experiment, so really my evidence is anecdotal at best. It was enough to convince me to buy Miracle-Gro and use it for growing, but it's certainly not what I would call valid. I think that if I had done that test and lots of scientists all over the world had done the test, we probably would have gotten similar results. I do think Miracle-Gro in the end ends up working. The other thing is reliability. Most of you noticed in that website 4 that was run by a group out of Minnesota, it was a special interest group, most of you decided to give that a fairly low score, maybe the highest, 13 or 14 on that scoring rubric. Some of you, however, gave it a higher score, and I can see why. The site looked very nice. It looked very newsworthy. It had relevant articles about climate change. You could actually see an author on one of those sites. So I actually can see how some of you would have called that sort of a reliable source. However, if you use that scoring rubric and you looked a little deeper into the article, and that's my dog Bandit again saying hi, what you would have found